So this is a kind of a temporary project that is kind of what we're calling the Quarantine Chronicles, the COVID edition of Reframe, where we're spending a little bit of time with each team member and talking a little bit about what it's been like to be in this. So we're not going to talk about how to work remotely or how to lead a brainstorm session or any of those things, although I'm sure they're really important. We want to talk a little bit more about personal experiences of folks on our team. Today, we have my amazing partner, Anna Love, is here, and she's joining Jake and I. Let's do a one-word check-in from everybody. How you doing today? How you're coming into this? Like, what's it like?
In only one word? I only get one word?
Yeah, I'll give you a sentence if you really want a sentence.
I need a sentence.
Take it.
Today, I am coming into this with an unusual amount of refreshing. Okay, I can do it in one word. I'm feeling a bit refreshed, which is unlike the last couple of weeks. So you're catching me on a good day.
I'm jealous.
That's your one-word check-in, is jealous?
It is now. I continue to think, like, what day is it? Like, that's my whole attitude is kind of like the cycle of activity has really narrowed itself down to a 14-hour awake period that seems to repeat with I haven't left my neighborhood in a month. Haven't left my house in weeks. So and I'm not complaining. It's good and bad. I kind of like it, actually. But that definitely is that's my check-in is time is a flat circle.
Well, I'm just gonna be honest with you. I had intended to commute by bike to work this morning, and it was like, it's nice and cool out and sunny and beautiful. And I was just so tired. My body was so tired that I couldn't bring myself to do it. And so I kind of crawled in the shower and just went ahead and cleaned up and then drove kind of guiltily to work today. And so I was just operating from this place of man, you wuss. It was an amazing day to commute to work and you just totally.
I don't know. I feel like that's an interesting thing to dig into is I've had this conversation with quite a few people of you got to allow yourself the little forgivenesses, right? I mean,
yeah.
There's some article that I didn't read, but read the headline, like most articles I look at now, quarantine is not the time for self-improvement or something like that. And or don't make yourself a project during all of this. Mm-hmm. I think it was a little tongue in cheek, but I actually think there's some merit to it I'm definitely exercising and trying to keep up my healthy routines, but also just allowing myself the slips and being just trying to keep my mental sanity in whatever way that shows up.
I agree. I mean, Anna and I were talking about this the other day. If you go to Fantasyland, aka Instagram, you will see people that are custom hand drawing the syllabus for their children's school all day long, and they're making homemade granola and they're learning Mandarin all at the same time. And it's fucking come on, just because we're all at home doesn't mean that we're not living in a time of fear and uncertainty and ambiguity and everybody's got financial stress, and we're also trying to avoid getting sick and dying. These are all important things, and they're enough on their own without having to learn Mandarin and make your own granola.
I think that over the last 10 years or so, as social media has become such a part of our lives, we've taught ourselves that in some ways the way we project ourselves is the way that we feel, even though we know that that's a farce. And so by projecting us as the perfect homeschool mom that's busy also being the chef, maybe that is our reality, and it isn't. And so I think it does us. It's a disservice to ourselves to even pretend that we're nailing it when none of us are nailing it, because we don't even know what nailing it looks like.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I agree with you, Jake. I mean, I think that notion of have a lot of compassion towards yourself, have a lot of compassion towards others, is completely fair.
On the kiddo front at my house, so we're homeschooling for the last 3-4 weeks, and my wife has done a wonderful job. And at first, she was very regimented, and she had the lesson plans. She was. It was very much like kindergarten. My oldest son is in kindergarten. My youngest is still in pre-K. And then as the weeks kind of went on, the days morphed, and she like allowed herself to do some projects around the house or have some lazy days. And she started feeling that tension of like, am I not doing a good enough job? And we finally just, at least right now, we're at a point where we're just letting the kids kind of lead the energy.
There's no award for best quarantine homeschool parent.
No.
No one's going to get that, especially as, a lot of us are busy doing so many things all at the same time. And if we expect to be able to do schooling the way that our kids used to have schooling, we're going to fail miserably. And so instead of trying to create our academic normal at home that is similar to the way it was at school, we have to completely turn normal on its head and reimagine it from the start and allow ourselves to do it in a radically different way. That might mean not doing the lesson plan that the teachers have laid out.
You said kind of radically reimagining what normal is, turn normal on its head. So I'm curious how that is showing up. What's the new normal look like in a positive way for you that maybe was unexpected?
One of the most, I think, interesting things that has emerged over the last few weeks is I've started keeping a list of the things that I really appreciate about this very strange period of time. And they're things as simple as, like, I call my parents every day just to check in. And I haven't historically done that. Going for more walks, that's one. I'm spending more time checking in with my kids at kind of a very emotional level, like, okay, how are you doing today? And because we're all in this very strange environment, it makes sense. Like, yeah, well, it was hard today because I just found out one of my teachers is being laid off, which was the story from yesterday. And so we're checking in and we're talking about it. And I didn't do that in the same way 2 months ago. We would check in with Rosebud Thorn. Hey, what was the highlight and the low light? But it tended to be a bit superficial. And so I think there's a realness about the conversations that I'm really appreciating. So I'm keeping this list. I'm keeping a list of the things that I don't want to lose sight of when it shifts again. Because as we create a new way of going about life, there are going to be a bunch of shifts that happen over the next year.
You really got to thank yourself for keeping a written list that you can refer back to.
Yeah. Do you remember being a kid and like having that list of things that adults don't understand? And when you're an adult, you're not going to do this.
I remember being a teenager and thinking like ways I will not be like my parents or their generation is asleep. They're sheep. And I actually stuck to that quite a bit, honestly. So, well,
I forgot my list. Like, I had this whole list of ways that I wasn't going to be like my parents, and then I forgot it. So now I'm keeping a list of ways that I'm not going to be like myself.
Isn't it funny that as a parent, like no matter what you do and how cool you are, or like your kid's going to make that list?
Yeah.
At some point.
They are. And I kind of appreciate that now I get to make that list about myself. And because everything is in such a compressed period of time, I can actually see the difference between the way my life functioned a month ago and the way it functions now. And because of that intensity, it's easier to notice the differences.
What is one thing that you used to do before COVID that you're not doing right now that you don't want to go back to? Like, I've had this conversation with a couple of friends, and Ann and I were kind of like, circling the drain on it this morning. But like, what's a thing for each of us that is kind of a habit that we had, conscious or unconscious, that we used to do that we don't want to pick back up once things do kind of start to head back to quote unquote normal or whatever the new reality is?
That's good. I think this might address a little bit of what you're saying, at least. So I emailed a friend of mine like last week, photographer friend, Andrea, who you all know and has been on the show. And I was like, had some random idea and she responded with, I cannot imagine doing work anymore that I don't care about after this.
Good.
And so like, I feel the same in the sense that like, there's a bit of like a recalibration of like all the things I find worthwhile, and like it makes you recenter, right, and rethink about why you do what you do, what your like body of work to be, and like all these kind of moments do that, right? Sometimes an amazing adventure or travel will help you with that. We've talked about that before, but like this is so specific, but it's mixed, right, with the tension of like, well, I need to keep a roof over the head, and like, so it's a weird dichotomy of like the way my brain is thinking. So I don't have like a black and white answer for like one thing, but part of me is like, don't forget your list, right? Like don't forget the things you feel right now. And then part of me is like, don't get your house repossessed. So those two things are living in the same world, and they're going to have to navigate and be bedfellows here this summer and fall. And so that'll be really interesting. But I hope to keep the lens of, don't say yes to everything just because it's got a paycheck on it.
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, so I'm warning. It's going to be a little bit heavy, so I'm going to rely on you, Parker, to bring it back up again. Right. But I think that I realized in kind of a superficial way the privilege that I get to live with, but it really wasn't obvious on a day-to-day basis. And there are some experiences in this quarantine environment where I'm the one that is on the end of privilege, like on the end of privilege you don't want to be on. Or maybe said more specifically, I'm experiencing other people's privilege in a way that I haven't before, in that way where you get frustrated and pissed off because it's not fair, because somebody else gets it so much easier than I get it right now as a single mom with 3 kids and 3 different ages and working full time in a small house. And it's just frustrating. And so there's something about feeling that has caused me to pause and notice all of the other places in my life where I'm lucky to have privilege. And I don't want to forget that feeling. I don't want to go back to being just completely oblivious to how lucky I am.
Since we started Stoked 9 years ago, 10 years, 9 years ago, I think, we have been kind of hard charging for a long time. Those first couple of years were really like a little bit slower and more interesting. It was just Anna and I, and we kind of took gigs when we wanted, and we said no to gigs we didn't feel like we should be working on, and we spent a lot of time with our families and out walking dogs and like goofing off, and my stress level was a solid 50% lower than it has been for probably the past 5 years. And so I don't regret the hard charging, and I don't regret the amount that we've worked or the places that we've traveled, but I'm also now experientially getting to understand what it feels like to take naps in the middle of the day, and to read, and to stop and have a conversation with somebody in the middle of the day, like a friendly conversation, which is not something I allow myself to do real often. And so I'm gaining a very different outlook on how I want to work moving forward. I'm 46 years old, so I'm not like retirement age yet, but I'm also not getting any fucking younger. And so I want to enjoy my life. I want to enjoy my time with my wife and our dog, and working 8, 10, 12 hours a day and thinking about work all the time after that is not something that I want to return to. And it's subtle and it's sneaky, and it kind of creeps up on you. You don't even know what's happening until you're in it, and you look back and you're like, what happened the last 2 months? So anyway, I don't know yet how to stay on guard about that, but I want to continue to live this kind of like what I consider to be a very like European work day and attitude towards work. I don't know if that's true or not, but every time I go to Europe, it seems like you see people reading fiction at 10 o'clock in the morning, and you're like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, do you have a job? Like, I'm angry at you, and I want your life, and all of those things. So that's mine is mostly around like my work ethic and this like Western idea that I have about how much I need to work and how much money I need to have and all that shit. I need a lot less than I think I do.
I think one of the first conversations that we had on the phone, or I don't remember if it was Zoom or on the phone, but when this all started happening, and you said that it still might be my favorite line. I've got a kind of a collection of quotes from different people that I've been talking to over the last few weeks. This might still be the top one. As you were like, I think I might end up making a third of the money and be twice as happy when it's over.
Yeah,
and that one sentence might just be, etch that on your wall and make you, and that's it. I mean,
yeah, and how to not lose sight of that and forget that when life becomes plush again.
right.
That's the trick.
You have a wonderful writing habit, and you're a good writer, and I think you aspire to write even more. And so I think the world is just kind of kicking you into that cabin on the lake, bro.
Who's buying the cabin on the lake?
But yeah, you can write it. Until they come with a shotgun and make you leave.
It's a $4 million cabin. It's huge. It's got 3 boats and 2 jet skis. And
You might have to earn your way into that cabin through yard work.
There is like a serious, like, I totally pick that I resonate with that of like, enough is enough. We lose track of that when we get into the work grind. And there's a reason, because, we're all ambitious and we all have goals, and we all, but to really sit in the enough is enough, a grateful feeling. And then we're all going to look back at this. Hopefully one of the positive things we'll remember, there's a lot to be negative about, but will be that we lived at half speed, and we caught up with old friends in the middle of the day, and lived by a clock, even of our own making.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and we had a chance. There was a period of time where we had a chance to let go of the way we thought things should be. And we got to be surprised by how wonderful they were when it wasn't the way we thought it was. There's a good lesson in there. We get to hang on with a grip that's not quite as tight.
Yeah. There's something that happens when you're so out of control, like we're so powerless to do anything about this, that you just kind of relax into it, If you still think that there's some way you can control something, you still tend to try to control it, right? And you still try to grip it too tight. But when it's something this big and you're so utterly powerless over it, you just let go and kind of sink into it and be like, well, all right, I'm going for a ride right now. And it doesn't help me to try to swim against the current. So,
and I think something that's interesting about that for me, Parker, is letting go is not a passive act. Actually, letting go is also active, and it's not giving up. It's just being open to something that isn't the way that we thought it was going to be. And so it's a very active way of allowing our lives to be something new,
right?
To unfold in a new way, and to surprise us.
Yeah. I'd frame it like, in my mind, it's like I'm not giving up hope, but I am giving up control. And those are different things, I'm not giving up. I'm not just like, okay, I'll just die now. That's not it. But yeah, giving up what I think my vision of how things should turn out, and how we should get there. Going back to that old thing that we used to say years ago, which is like, I'm letting go of the map and I'm grabbing a compass,
Exactly. And you know what? I think that's what, going back to the very beginning of this conversation, that's why I'm making a list of the things that I love right now, is that is acting as my compass as I navigate this. It allows me to have a sense of, okay, so these are some guiding principles for me as this new life is designed.
I think we should just check in weekly here. I think that's the idea. Yeah.
That is the idea. The weekly check-in. We'll invite some other team members, folks that don't often grace us on Reframe, and so and then we'll do this as long as it feels pertinent and relevant, and hopefully it provides a little short bright spot in people's days.
It sure felt nice to connect with you guys today.
Oh, likewise. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah,
totally.
Sorry about your snow up there.
Yeah.
I don't know.